Hi, everyone. This is Edan of Light Cycle Astrology. Today, we are doing Mantic Monday, episode number 6, where we take a look at the astrology for the week ahead between August the 14th and the 20th. It's a really big week. We have a new moon in Leo coming through. We have some stuff happening with Venus in her retrograde. We have some Mercury stuff happening that is pretty big. We have some Mars stuff that is beginning to happen by the end of the week. So we'll get into that in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave me some comments in the comment section. That is so helpful to promote the channel's algorithm. And I really like to see how you guys experience some of the things we talk about for the astrology on the channel. You can always go to my website, lightcycleastrology.com, if you feel like you need some more personalized astrological guidance. If you like the content on the channel, you can get a reading from me that goes over transits ahead or zodiacal releasing or anything that you're wondering about. If you have some big things coming up in your life, that can be a good time to seek out some professional astrological guidance on that. Okay, well, let's get into the week ahead here, and we'll pull up the real-time clock and begin to look at the beginning of the week. Now, I actually have the real-time clock set to last Saturday, August the 12th, and that's because last Saturday, the sun began to engage Uranus by square, and so moving on to the first days of this week, this has yet to perfect, but it is really cooking. It is still before the actual perfection. We typically use about 3 degrees before and 3 degrees after a perfection to give us that range of engagement or when you might be feeling those archetypal energies between the two planets involved. So last Saturday, the sun moved into that 3-degree range of a square to Uranus and has really been building since then. And by the time we get to Monday, the 14th here, it's still pretty close to perfecting, but it doesn't perfect until Wednesday this week. So this is definitely one of the major signatures of the week as it begins here, especially here. I want to go ahead and put my label on. So this is perfecting Wednesday, but as we move a couple of days forward, we're really getting this Sun-Uranus energy that we'll talk about here in a moment. But by the time we get to Wednesday, what's really interesting is that Uranus clicks into the 23rd degree within Taurus here. And of course, the sun does too at the same time. And that is the perfection between the two planets. But look at the moon. Also on Wednesday, the moon is, of course, almost, by this point that the perfection happens, is almost conjoined with the sun as well, the new moon moment in Leo. So the new moon comes through just a few hours after the perfection, and that is also happening on Wednesday. And then there is one more big thing that is happening on Wednesday is we get Mercury's closest position to Mars. So this is all happening on one day and makes the energy kind of potent, I think. But you'll see down here is Mercury at 19 degrees and 20 arc minutes in Virgo, and trying to catch Mars at 22 degrees. But Mercury will not be able to catch Mars this time around because Mercury is preparing to turn retrograde. So Mercury is in that slow down phase. And, over the last couple of weeks, Mercury has really been trying to catch up to Mars. And Mars has been flying through Virgo. Mercury has been too, but now Mercury, I would say over the last 10 days or so has began to lose momentum and speed. And of course, we translate that as sort of an astrological omen. So eventually, Mercury and Mars will make a conjunction, but it's not until Mercury has already gone through her retrograde cycle and has caught back up to Mars. So that's part of the nuance or omen of this conjunction. It's like it almost happens, but there's something not right. The timing isn't right. It almost reminds me of, like, have you ever seen an accident or something as you're driving to work or going somewhere in your car? And sometimes I think about this, and it's like, that maybe you could have been in that accident had you left, 2 minutes early or something like that. You get the feeling it's like, wow, that was pretty close to me. And if if something had happened just a little bit quicker, maybe that would have been me. It has a little bit of that essence to it where Mercury is trying to catch Mars, but just can't quite make it this time. The timing isn't right. So we're going to get this conjunction down the road, but right now it's like there's a reconsideration, or there is a fated moment that intervenes and says, no, this is not the right time for this particular energy to fully come together. So that is a pretty interesting signature for the week, I think. That is also tying in with this new moon in Leo that is connected to a Uranian kind of energy by square, which of course is going to color the new lunation cycle ahead. So that is a big part of this week in the middle here. And then if we roll the real-time clock forward, we are going to get to Thursday now. And on Thursday, Mercury begins to move into a trine to Uranus. So Uranus is really in the mix here, isn't he? He's kind of in the new lunation energy that is beginning to seed. Of course, Venus and Uranus have been making contacts before this, and then we have Mercury making contacts now to Uranus. So Uranus is a big part of the cycle ahead, I would say. And then if we roll the clock forward to Friday, we're going to get Venus beginning to engage Jupiter now by a square. So this is part of the story of Venus in her retrograde now. Now, remember last week on Sunday, at the very end of the week, last week, Venus was conjoined with the sun and in that Cazimi moment. So Venus is now on the other side of the retrograde cycle, or halfway done with the retrograde cycle. And this is the half where Venus is recovering, or is beginning to move towards reappearing as a visible star in the sky. So it's a really positive omen that Venus is making this contact with a benefic right at this time, that she is beginning to recover past the most difficult portion of the retrograde, which happens before the Cazimi. So that is also a signature that is coming through by late this week. And finally, we are going to get, also on the same day on Friday, we're going to get Mars beginning to move into an opposition with Neptune. So Mars at the end of Virgo. So that's another big signature. The Mars opposite Neptune aspect perfects next week, but the energy begins to come in for us at the end of the week and through the weekend here. Okay, so let's get into some of the archetypal themes to watch for, given all of these aspects that are coming through the week. The first one definitely is going to be the new moon in Leo that is making that square back to Uranus. And then, of course, right before the new moon, the sun perfects that square to Uranus. So one thing that is a big theme of this week in particular that is really setting the stage for the new lunation cycle ahead is definitely these Uranian contacts with the light. So I think that just in general, there's a theme coming for this week and the next couple of weeks that is kind of like a breakout cycle. You know, there's something that is trying to break loose, break free of the cycle ahead. You know, like for me, I have a lot of planets in fixed signs, so I'm always trying to do things exactly the same way. But this is like, you know, with planets in fixed signs, could the things that we do the same way all the time, could this be a time where there is innovation, where we still want to do it the same way, but we're gonna somehow innovate or improve or discover new ways to do those same things? But this could also be a tension that says you need to break out of the rut of doing things the same way all the time. So that is kind of a theme of the week, but carries on into the new lunation cycle ahead. Another part of this, or another angle that you could take from these particular planetary archetypes, though, is definitely one that is against authority, where we might see particular revolts against authority, revolts against tyranny or hierarchy. When you get the sun and Uranus in that square energy, there is tension there, especially when the sun is in his own temple of Leo, right, where he is in a very powerful position. And Leo has always been connected to the the archetype of the leader or ruler or government or president, the sun as a planet that is connected to leadership and rulership, being that it is a planet at the center of the solar system, a planet that provides the light and warmth possible, the planet that even defines the zodiac that the other planets are traveling through. So the planet has a big connection to things that are at the center of authority. So one big theme that could also be another way to look at some of the new moon energies coming through on Wednesday, just hours after the perfection of the sun square Uranus, is definitely questions around authority, tyranny, hierarchy. Now, this could shake out two ways. This could be a time where we rediscover how to communicate or reiterate our boundaries with other people or in certain situations. And I know for me, I have some planets in Libra, and definitely I can let things slide where it's just like, I don't really need to say, no on this. I'll just go ahead and do this, or it's not such a big deal. But when somebody like gets your name wrong, and you can either sort of just like not say anything and they'll just keep calling you the wrong name. Or have you ever noticed that some people, they're very quick to tell you instantly, no, this is my name. And they don't have any apprehension about doing that. This could be a little bit of that kind of an energy where it's like we rediscover how to not be apprehensive about letting other people know or defining boundaries within situations with other people. These are my lines. This is what I don't want you to do. This is what I need, or all of those types of things. We could be reiterating or rediscovering, redefining things around our own personal boundaries that are important to us. We could also be, of course, resisting other people's boundaries against us or other people's tyranny if we feel that they're being tyrannical or unfair or too authoritarian. An example of this for me locally has been the situation, the very, very sad situation with the natural wildfires in Lahaina, because I live in Hawaii, and I don't live on Maui. I live on the Big Island. So this is the neighbor island to me. But people have died. And one thing that has been really coming into focus as this Sun Uranus aspect has been moving towards perfection over the last couple of days has definitely been that people have been questioning the response of the authorities to sound the warning system properly or within enough time. And so far, residents have been coming into the media and saying, we had no warning. We had to figure it out ourselves. The authorities botched their responsibilities or their duties here. And apparently they spent a lot of money to install the technology for specific wildfire prevention or warnings. So it's really interesting to me that as this Sun square Uranus aspect has been moving into perfection, there have already been questions around this wildfire event that have been calling for an investigation of the central authorities. And I'm pretty cynical. Usually you don't see much coming from investigations when authorities investigate themselves or when governments investigate themselves. Usually nothing really comes of it. It doesn't seem like it does most of the time anyway. But suffice it to say that this could also be a theme that we see over the next couple of days or just in the week ahead here is, people questioning authorities in terms of their duties or if they're being tyrannical or the legitimacy of authority or hierarchy, as it were. Those could be themes that we could see coming through. We could be challenging those in our circumstances or situations or with other people around us. And again, both planets in fixed signs, that brings in kind of an extra tension. The square between the two planets already is tense, but because this is happening in fixed signs, you get a little bit of that, that tension sort of ramped up a little bit. So there could be, of course, sometimes these shocking events that come out of revolts or actions taken against people that seemingly have too much authority, or people challenging our authority, and then us, sort of exploding out of nowhere and demanding that they, respect us, or things like that. So there's a little bit of tension. Now, one thing I do want to say just in general with the new moon cycle ahead is that because of this tension between the light squaring Uranus, Uranus is a planet that can sometimes just broadly symbolize things being unstable, right? Or being unconventional, not stable, chaotic. And I think that if you look at Uranus as a planet that mythologically was connected to a god that was essentially the first god, and represented the unformed chaos of the primordial soup, before things had been pulled together by gravity and formed into ordered systems of planets orbiting stars and things like that. Uranus is sort of the god that was like, everything is in the sky, but it's not ordered yet. So there can be this connection with chaos that just sort of comes in, disorder coming in. So that's something to watch for in the cycle ahead for sure this week, and then on into the whole lunation cycle ahead. I think is, just be prepared for those asteroids to sort of, come out of nowhere. That could be something that is also a signature of the beginning of the week and on into the lunation cycle ahead. Some instability or disorder or chaos could sort of interject into the normal system of, this is how things are done with Leo and the sun in Leo and things like that. This is the established way that we do this. This is the protocol. This is the, this is the routine. Those things could also just see an interjection of chaos or, unconventionality, just sort of coming in and sort of breaking up the normalcy of things. So that is some of the themes, I think, for the first part of the week through to Wednesday. Now, if we take a look at the Mercury transition theme here, where we essentially see Mercury slowing down this week, trying to make that conjunction to Mars, but never successfully doing it this time around. Like I said at the beginning of the video, that omen of Mercury not being able to catch Mars now, it's going to happen down the road, but at least right now, Mercury doesn't quite make it. So that is essentially the detail that you need to try to read as an omen, that there is something that was almost going to happen, but it doesn't happen. So it's almost like with these connections with Uranus, the theme is like, hey, let's think about this a little differently. We're beginning to slow down, but there may be something coming in with the Mercury trine to Uranus that says, oh, I never thought of it that way. That is really interesting. It's like there's this moment or flash of intuition that sort of comes in. It's like the light bulb goes off, and you're just like, whoa, I never knew that. I never thought about it this way. It's like all of a sudden you just understand that something is a little bit more clear or luminescent, and there's this very clarifying moment that may cause reason for pause or to slow down and to rethink. And this is where we see Mercury preparing to stop and then reverse course, and then of course, go back and maybe rethink something, or redo something, or recommunicate something, or reinvest in some way. Anything that is related to Mercury as a symbol or an archetype, those mercurial archetypal things are beginning to slow, but they're doing so as they contact Uranus by trine, a positive aspect. So there is some positive understanding that is coming through. And I think it says, let's think about this a different way, just in general. So that is a big part of the week, as well as we're beginning to get those little inclinations percolating through the cranium. And another big signature, of course, is going to be that Venus is heading towards reappearance in Leo. She has made it through the Cazimi. We're in the second half of the Venus retrograde cycle. And as she begins to make her way towards becoming visible again, we see that she makes a square back to Jupiter. So this, of course, just broadly speaking, Venus and Jupiter, when they get together, even if it's by square, these are generally good things. It's just a general omen that it's like, hey, something good is about to happen, or it's, there's something fortuitous coming to pass here. So just the general broad theme of Jupiter saying, yes, I confirm, I grant, I grow, I increase in a positive way. I give you something. I provide some benefit or resource to whatever it is that you are needing right now, or whatever Venus is needing right now as she is preparing to become visible. And, when Venus is retrograde in the sign of Leo and she's about to become visible, the Leo, the temple of the sun, a planet that is, if nothing, very visible, right? I mean, we see the sun. The sun literally represents being able to see things. So I think Venus reemerging into visibility, it's not just her becoming visible like she would in any other sign. And we'll talk more about this next week. This is really Venus becoming really like, she's not just visible, she's like on the stage, with the limelight or something like that. So this is a potent Venus preparing to shine. And she does so just after, going through a very fortunate angle to Jupiter, a planet that is in the ancient world connected to things that grow, or connected to things that are fortuitous, like an inheritance or getting pregnant. So a few of the key things that you could say about this is that creative forces are pressed into taking action, but it's like big action, right? Jupiter wants to do things big. So there could be big risks, or there could be this sense of hope or optimism that is coming around. In the shadow side of this, there could be like a rose-colored glasses kind of thing that has a willful ignorance. So there is a shadow side to every aspect. And I think with Venus in square to Jupiter, you have to talk about that shadow side because it's a square. And how do you see the potential negatives of a square? I think that with both Venus and Jupiter in fixed signs, just like when we talked about the sun making that square to Uranus, and they're both in fixed signs, this fixity that we get between these two signs, it's really strong. We think about Taurus as like the bull that digs in and rams the crap out of you if you mess with him. We're talking about the sun that is like, I'm the king in the castle. Who can challenge me? So you really get this loggerhead kind of thing sometimes. And I think that with Venus, she's going to want beauty and aesthetics and style and creativity and love and all of those things. Even if she is retrograde, she's going to try to lust after those things. So rose-colored glasses, right? Rose-colored glasses that is remaining willfully ignorant could be a part of this. It's like Jupiter says, no, you do you no matter what. You do you, and you do you big, right? You be you big. And Venus might willfully just not see anything else, right? Venus might be like, no, I don't care. I don't want to look at it. I don't even want to hear or see it. I'm going to just like, it's kind of like, me sometimes, I'm really bad about sometimes looking at how much money I have in the bank. Sometimes I just don't want to know. I won't spend money. Like if I feel like maybe I should find out, I won't actually keep spending money, but I just don't want to get bummed out by it. I just want to at least feel like I'm okay. So like that's a personal thing for me that I can relate to this. Sometimes having those rose-colored glasses, willful ignorance, that could be a part of this as well. Big purchases, spending, indulgence, increased libido, getting pregnant, love life. These are all things that could be potentially signified by a square from Jupiter here. Just going too far, spending big, taking risks, just overindulgence, overeating, having an increase in libido or sexuality, finding out that you're pregnant, that could be one that I'd be interested to find out if that happens for some people out there, because If Venus is retrograde and it's like you get pregnant during that moment where there's a contact with Jupiter, that could definitely fit the bill of like, okay, Mercury is slowing down to pause. It's like, okay, we need to think something big is happening here. But, you know, an increase in love life. Of course, Venus retrograde, we could see a person from the past. I love this one. When Venus is retrograde, we often get that classic interpretation of somebody from the past returning. And that's because Venus has that social dimension or love dimension or romantic dimension to her as an archetypal planet. So somebody coming back, but could it be somebody that comes back that we really like, that is somebody we feel good about, like that has that Jupiter, like I feel good kind of Jupiter quality, or it seems like it's a fated thing that happened for the best, or you know, it's something for the good that comes along. It isn't like the fate that you wish hadn't happened. It's more like the fate that you're pleasantly surprised at. But yeah, seemingly some good fate or fortune comes along that may have to do with a person that could come re-enter or come back in your life. There could also be, interestingly enough, with Venus retrograde, Jupiter by square might almost act a little bit more like Saturn in this particular instance. For instance, like appetite or some big move to curb such things that bring order back to them. So it could be that if something has been a little bit over the top, Jupiter might actually say, whoa, we need some order here. We need some law. We need some system of cohesion that brings things back into order. Jupiter can be a planet that is connected to things like that, like order, law, justice. So there could be a move almost to curb overindulgence, especially with Venus retrograde. Maybe Venus is trying to reverse back out of overindulgence or things that are unhealthy, or like eating too much or eating the wrong food, or not having a healthy lifestyle in some way. Venus retrograde could speak to, let's get back on track, and Jupiter might say, let's do something really, really positive for us, but positive in terms of let's emerge out of this thing in a better, healthier way. Let's have some order. So order and law aren't always, negative. They can be good, of course. So that could also be a part of this as well. And remember, though, as Venus emerges into visibility, the sun enters Virgo right at the same time. We're going to talk about this more next week, but there's an interesting trade-off here where Venus becomes visible next week, but also simultaneous to that, the sun enters Virgo. And the reason why that's important is because the sun has been providing resources and support to Venus retrograde, but will the sun moving into Virgo, of course, will signal that gets somehow cut off or it ends at that point. I think that one way you might be able to interpret that is by an example where, like, maybe a child goes to live, in the dorms of a university where there's some social thing that is beginning to emerge, right? Venus is emerging into visibility, but it's without parental supervision or observation. It's almost like, if you had a child that leaves home and, is going to be living for the first time on their own in an apartment or in the dorm rooms at university or something like that, where it's like there's a new social situation emerging, but it doesn't have the watchful parental authority observing it. It's like a new situation that is for the first time getting to be social on its own or without support or in an independent kind of way. So that is also a signature that is slowly developing this week. And then lastly, we have the Mars opposed Neptune theme that is coming in at the very end of the week and is going to be perfecting next week. And again, we'll talk about that. But I think that this in general is just very simply, I'm worn out. Now maybe I'm biased and I'm just interjecting my own what's going on with me in my life. But, Mars in Virgo, Virgo is so about being on the ball, making things perfect, preparing for the future. And I don't know about you, but every Virgo person that I have known who has like a sun or some big Virgo placement, usually the sun for me, but every Virgo I have known, most of them are just incredibly hardworking. It's a stereotype that I think really is totally fair. If you know a Virgo sun, chances are, I think it's very rare that you get a Virgo sun that is not just incredibly, relentlessly, and joyfully pursuing work in some service, some kind of way, right? Service or work in some kind of way that is almost just like it never ends. It's almost like one of my favorite people, it basically works 3 jobs and does so in the most joyful way. Like it's like this person probably wishes they could work another job on top of that, but there just isn't time for that. So I think Mars in Virgo has been really active. He's been, Mars is a planet of action, and Virgo just ramped him up and like, go, 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 do it, get it done, do everything all at once. Like multiplicity, how many things can we juggle at once kind of a thing. And I think Mars is getting to the end of Virgo. Mars is about to enter a sign here that is technically one of those signs opposite to one of Mars's temples, and is called detriment, right? Or in contrariety, depending on the language that you use. But Mars is entering Libra, a sign that is the fall of the sun, and it's pretty much antithetical to Marsy kinds of things. So there's a way in which it's almost losing his independence in a way, right? Libra is a sign that is very much concerned with how others are doing. That's why it's the fall of the sun, because the sun is the leader. He thinks about numero uno, right? Libra doesn't think about numero uno. Libra thinks about numero uno almost last. So Mars and the sun share that kind of quality of being like, hey, I do for me. Mars going into Libra is going to be losing that sort of self-centric kind of quality a little bit, and that's going to be frustrating for Mars a little bit. But I think that Mars encountering an opposition from Neptune right before that is that blend of energy that says, it can't just be like a switch, right? Astrology can't just be like, okay, we're having this aspect, and then switch, we're having this aspect. Astrology is elusive to most people. And in fact, I think that this is why a lot of people don't believe in astrology, is because you don't really feel hard switches from one thing to the next. You sort of get a blend. And I think that this is one of those camo blends. It's an aspect that sort of gives Mars the effect of like, hey, we're getting to the end of a sign. Number one, planets at the end of signs typically wear out. Number two, we're heading towards a sign that is antithetical to that sort of individualistic, numero uno centric kind of mode. Number three, Neptune can sometimes make Mars feel ineffective or weak or watered down or lazy or something like that. So you put all three of these things together, I think you just get a general theme of Mars just saying, man, I have been going, I have been doing, I have been multitasking like no tomorrow. And I feel like Mars is just saying, holy mackerel, I need a break. I gotta take a break here. Even Mars, I think, can get tired sometimes. And so I feel like this is a theme for Mars by the end of the week. It's like, oh man, we're getting close to the end of summer. We need to slow down a little bit. We need to take a break. We need to slow down, take a break, start thinking about other things, back off the gas pedal a little bit here. Mercury is going retrograde. Let's rethink some stuff. There are a confluence of some of these basic themes coming through where it's just like maybe we're heading towards a time where we need to kind of slow down slightly, ease off the gas pedal. Now, of course, Mars opposed Neptune themes can also be about those spiritual or like spiritual warrior kind of things that come through, where Mars is the quintessential warrior and Neptune provides that almost like fantasy warrior. So, you could see things like just wanting to lounge around a bit more and play video games where you're in a fantasy world and you're doing battle or something like that. So you could see those fantasy and war kinds of themes coming together. This definitely is a time I have been noticing that in my short jaunts of listening to the news, which I don't do very much, but I do it from time to time in short little bursts. And I have been noticing that there have been some pretty alarming things about the escalation of war, with the Ukraine conflict. So hopefully not, but this is not a great time to be clear on war or conflict. This is definitely a theme by the end of the week that says, it might be difficult to really understand conflict or challenge or war. It's also a time where you want to be careful just of accidents or injuries physically, because again, Mars is heading towards the end of a sign and is going to be entering the sign of detriment. So there are some potential omens here that accidents could happen because you're a little bit careless, or like for instance, this would definitely not be a time to be out socially and having cocktails or drinks and then drive home. Definitely not. So you have to be careful around accidents that could happen because you're just not being very, very careful at that moment. Okay, well, that's what I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I hope this has been a good episode for you. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about this, and share anything that you're comfortable sharing. Personally, ways in which you see the astrology coming through this week. I'd love to get the comments, and we will be back next week for another Mantic Monday episode. Take care and have a great week. Bye for now.